Hi, I'm Annie with Miserable Cow Coaching. Contact information is in the description. Happy Valentine's Day. Today I'm going to talk about my relationship as an ENFP with my partner who is an ISTP. I'm going to be talking about this in objective personality system terms, and so if you're coming from MBTI land, this might not make sense. My typing is official from objective personality, and then my partner's type is not an official type. It's the type that I've arrived at after being with him for 13.5 years and studying objective personality for the last 3 years, and I could be completely off. I think I'm close. The more that I consider this, it's really clicking recently. Pretty sure I see his type. So for this video, I'm going to be talking about our functions based on my belief that he is TISE, consume, play, sleep, blast. I could be wrong about the animals because there are reasons that consume, sleep make sense, but he feels energy dominant. So that's why I think consume, play, sleep, blast probably makes more sense. But what the hell do I know? As far as the sexuals, for him, I'm going to say double feminine for now. It's really hard for me to think of him as having feminine sensory because he's so manly, so capable, so athletic. But then when I really think about it, he's got this grace about him in all his movements, like a fluidity and a grace and a quickness that isn't smashing. Like when I compare his supposed feminine SE to my masculine SI, I'm a smasher. I'm a door slammer. I very clearly have masculine sensory, and he just doesn't seem like he does. I'm audio, MF, and he seems very visual. That's the other thing. If I'm wrong, then it's because he's DE instead of DI. But I know him really well, and I swear to God, he is peacocking DE. So he can sometimes seem very DE, but I swear to God, it's a peacock. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's just go with this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what we fight about, where we miscommunicate, and what is awesome about us. So let's start with some awesome things. We laugh. And it's this very irreverent demon NF kind of humor. On his part, it's a demon NF humor because he literally is demon NF. NF is a savior for me. But for me, it's more like demon convention, demon conformity. I live very unconventionally, so does he. Unconventional life choices. We're both self-employed and do not participate in society in any normal, homogenized, basic way at all. So that's where the demon NF flavor of humor comes from me. Shitting on conformity, shitting on conventionality. For him, it's literal demon NF. Here are some examples of the humor I'm talking about. When we had our 5th anniversary, I said, our 5th anniversary is coming up. We should do something special. And he said, you mean like a murder-suicide pact? And it was just golden. That's the kind of thing we laugh about. We're not mushy-gushy, flowers and poetry. We're like demon romantic. Another time he was in the kitchen cooking me this beautiful Valentine's dinner, and just randomly he said, if we lived in Dubai, technically I could cut off your head. Not romantic, but hilarious. And the kind of jokes that I make also in our relationship are very similar to that. Another great thing is that when we have tensions, miscommunications, friction, fighting, it often ends in laughter. So the fight might be really intense and feel really real, but there's this moment where we just step outside and look at it and see the absurdity, and we just both bust out laughing. I mean, not to sweep the problem under the rug or leave it unresolved, but just to see the absurdity of it and lighten up a little bit. Also, because I have this masculine FI, sometimes I do get stuck in my feelings, and sometimes I go to bed angry, which, they say isn't a good idea. But sometimes it's unresolved. I go to bed angry, and every time when he eventually gets up into bed, he kisses me and tells me that he loves me. He will not go to sleep without doing that. And it's just this comfort and this confirmation for both of us. We're okay. No matter what the friction is, ultimately we are okay. Huge thing we fight about is TV, what to watch on TV. And I think this has to do with the consume. So he has ST consume, I have NF consume. I can get on board with a lot of ST stuff. The reason is that I'm always connecting it to the NF patterns, connecting it to the bigger NF picture. He cooks the dinner. He's the dinner guy. And so the fight is when dinner's ready, what are we gonna watch on TV? That's the tension. And we run out of shows. Like we'll find something something that we both agree on. We really love all the Anthony Bourdain series, another ISTP. All those shows, Parts Unknown, and all of the Anthony Bourdain content is a really good mix of, sensory and feeling. We love Grand Designs, a show where, regular people kind of get in over their head building new homes that are maybe a little bit too ambitious. We love that one. And I'm really looking at the personalities. I'm in my OP mind when I'm watching that because I'm looking at the functions of the people, and I like architecture too. The tension is he's doing all this work making the dinner and also feels like he has the burden to find the next show that we're going to watch if we've run out of a series or something. When I try to help, that help is rejected. If I do all the research and say, how about we watch this show or that show, I'll put a lot of stuff in the queue. One by one, every single thing that I suggested is a no. And I think that this comes down to TI on his part. I noticed this in many other areas. It really needs to be his idea. He doesn't accept outside input. I see this especially if he's working on a creative project. He is very, very secretive about his brainstorming and where it's going. T is not something that you do out loud and share with people. He's secretive, even hides his projects from me. Like, no, you can't see it yet. It's not done. No, you can't hear about my idea. I'm not going to talk about it because somehow it'll lose power if I share it with you. So if I suggest a show, it's a no. It's like this automatic reflexive no. And I feel like when I'm searching for the shows, I'm doing a really good job of honoring his ST consume, something that is in that realm that I will also enjoy. But it's just this reflexive, compulsive no. The idea needs to come from inside of myself. I do not accept outside input, opinions, ideas. We had a huge fight the other day about the show Succession. I really didn't want to watch it, but what I've heard from so many people is that it's highly acclaimed and that a lot of people took a long time to warm up to it. So that first episode especially is brutal. You see these characters and you're like, I do not care about you people. You are horrible people. And, how do you want to continue watching a show that starts off the way that first episode did? But it's so highly acclaimed. Even Terry Gross on Fresh Air said she felt that way about the first episode, but it's awesome as you move along and it's a joke. It's a parody. So I really wanted to give it a chance because I'd heard so many good things about it. So his initial response was no, of course, like it always is. After that first episode, he said, no, I'm absolutely not watching this anymore. And I got so angry, and it might have seemed like a disproportionate anger, like who cares? He doesn't want to watch that show. Whatever, we won't watch that show. But what I was upset about was the underlying pattern of him reflexively rejecting all of my ideas. If it wasn't his idea first, then he's not interested. And I remember at the most intense moment, I looked at him and I said this with so much vitriol. I said, this is a highly acclaimed show. People love this show and you will never get to experience it because you refuse to watch it. I was just like, what are we fighting about here? That was one where we eventually ended up laughing, but it got really intense. Another thing that we fight about is that he's constantly looking at his laptop or his tablet, which I am too, like constantly consuming. I'm listening to audiobooks, I'm reading articles online, listening to lectures. So his consume is just as strong as mine. But I'm curious. I know that we're studying different realms of the universe, and I want to know, what are you curious about right now? What's the thing that you're studying right now that you're so excited about? And so I'll ask him, like, what are you studying? And he's so private and secretive about it. And he'll just say, oh, it's nothing, not much. I'm just bouncing around the internet. And I think that comes back to TI again, just like private, like secretive about what he's consuming, and then, NT sleep processing inside his head. It's just too private for him, and he's unwilling to share it. The other thing that's interesting about that is every time I do get a peek at what he's looking at on his screen, it is ST consume. He is literally looking at charts. He's looking at graphs and charts. What is the economy doing on a graph? And what does it mean? What's the sensory? The other thing we miscommunicate about and have different approaches is TE versus TI. So it could be a situation where something in our house is broken, and I have this very MacGyver approach. Let's get some duct tape, let's get some zip ties, let's fix it for now, and then we can come back and fix it better later. He wants to stop everything he's doing and find the most elegant solution. And he's very perfectionistic and slow, and I'm thinking like, it's dinner time, the food's getting cold. Just fucking duct tape it and we'll fix it tomorrow. But in his work, he's so perfectionistic, and then also not willing to talk about the process. I'm not going to share my ideas and my brainstorming about how I'm arriving at this most elegant solution. We don't fix things together extrovertedly. We don't do that. Like, that is not allowed. He needs to go away quietly by himself and consider it and think about it all alone with no input from the outside, and find the most elegant solution on his own and execute it alone. That's a TE versus TI kind of miscommunication. Another difference in communication is his just excruciating ST communication style. So much sensory. And I find myself saying over and over again, and then what happened? And then what happened? And then what happened? And what I mean by that is, dude, fucking conclude. Give me the overview. I really just want the conclusion first. And it takes a long time to get there. I'm editing this video and I realize I need to talk more about what annoys him about me. And it really has to do with the observer and decider coin. So it's weird for him that I can get so upset about poorly designed systems. I feel completely hamstrung and controlled and victimized by a bureaucratic system that is poorly designed. Because from his perspective, we can solve that. We can work around it. This is how bureaucracy is. No big deal. Not the end of the world. My freakouts about the printer doesn't work feels like the end of the world because the printer doesn't work. His double observing bails me out very calmly. We can solve this. Let's troubleshoot this from different angles very calmly and figure it out. But with my observer freakout, because I have masculine FI, my violence is directed towards things. So there might be some slamming. There might be some throwing of printers out the window. But it's also, if there's no outward physical action, then the inner frustration is so intense that it changes the air in the room. Everyone in the room feels it when I'm frustrated. It's like this poltergeist power almost. I'm so angry that shit's gonna start flying off the shelves without touching it. How could I be that angry about a stupid thing or a stupid system? And then on his side, the decider issues I don't relate to at all. He doesn't have massive decider tidal waves. There's not a lot of people drama. It's this general fixation on the tribe's perception of him in a kind of a weird, distorted way that I don't experience. An example is if we have a family dinner and the whole family gets together, we get home later and he'll say, "Your mom really doesn't like me, does she?" It's ridiculous because my mom loves him. Everybody loves him. He's great. But he thinks he's perceiving that the tribe has some opinion of him that they probably don't. Or he'll get home from the grocery store and he'll say, "They were all looking at me. They think I look like a criminal." Because a lot of times when he stops by the grocery store on the way home, he's wearing his work pants. He's a contractor. He looks kind of dirty, not fresh as a daisy. And he perceives that the people in the grocery store are looking at him as if he's kind of a scuzzy, rough character. He gets a lot of attention from men and women who think he's attractive. So they see him and they're thinking, that's a good looking man. He just feels like the tribe's eyes are on him, that they're perceiving him in a way that they're probably not actually perceiving him. So that's what I talk him down from. And I'll just put that into perspective for him. No, my mom loves you. The people are looking at you because you're hot. They don't think you're a criminal. Anyway, I just thought that was worth mentioning. So I'm really clear about what I love and admire about him. You know, in MBTI, I think ISTP is the virtuoso, and I'd say that describes him. So he's a contractor, fixes things. He has the mind of an engineer. He fabricates stuff. I mean, if he wants to make something, going back to that idea of finding the most elegant solution, I mean, he fabricates all the parts to make it the most elegant solution, the most perfect thing. He made this coffee roaster he fabricated himself, and it took 3 years. It is a very elegant solution. And it's not only elegant from an engineering standpoint, I mean, it's all like computerized and technical and all this stuff, but it's a beautiful object. And so it's this kind of mix of the mind of an engineer and producing things that are aesthetically beautiful at the same time. Like, he designed all the furniture in our house. I could go on. You know, I love him. So there's a lot that I love about him. What I don't understand always is why he loves me. Like, why does he stick with me? What is it about me? Because we are so different. My NF is really different from him. And I'm into a lot of things like OPS that, by the way, he thinks is ridiculous. He's made up his mind about MBTI, that it's bullshit. And so OPS is exactly the same. And he puts it in the same bag with astrology or numerology or, all that woo-woo hippie nonsense. He just has already put it in that bag and he will not consider it. So I'm like, what do you like about me? So I asked him the other day, and one thing that we really agree on is that we both have chosen unconventional lifestyles, both being self-employed, caring about creativity. He said, I like the way you get really focused and committed about your creative projects. So I'll put in a lot of effort, and I'm very willing to fail a whole bunch in order to keep moving towards some creative project that I have. But the other thing he said was, I don't know, it's just something about you. In that case, he's just sharing sort of the NF. I don't know. It's vague. It's like your energetic presentation, your something, just something about you is what I love. I feel the same way about him. And it's weird. It's like I can't exactly put my finger on it, but what it reminds me of is when I first met him. This kind of ties into my concept of soulmate. It's a little different than the common understanding of soulmate. So it's not like love at first sight. It's not necessarily romantic love. A soulmate is someone that you have a soul contract with. You understand something that they need to understand. You have a piece of the puzzle that they need, and vice versa. And so my definition of soulmate extends to your mother, your father. These are soul contracts. There's a reason you and your mother are in relationship to each other, because you have pieces of the puzzle that you're sharing with each other in a hippie woo-woo kind of sense. So your neighbor, your dog, your enemy, someone at work that you really hate, but it's for some reason a relationship that's charged and there's this energy around it and you're learning. It's a potent relationship that includes learning and contributes to your personal evolution. So when I met him for the first time at the dog park, it wasn't love at first sight. That's not how I would describe it. It was this feeling like that one's important. And I've felt this about other partners that I've had and friends and teachers. It's this feeling that this is an important relationship. Doesn't mean it's going to last forever. It means that it's important and there's something to learn. And that's how I felt when I first met him. And I picked up on that right away. And he being demon NF, if he picked up on that on some level, he probably didn't see it and would not acknowledge it. But now as we've been together for longer and longer, he's more open about that and more willing to acknowledge it. There's just something about you. Can't put my finger on it. There's some reason this is important. And we're both here together doing this, living a life, building a family. By family, I mean dogs and nieces and nephews. Anyway, that's my experience as an ENFP with an ISTP partner and a little bit about how our parts interact. Have a beautiful day.